Hi everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today we've got Rob Basini from FSB. So thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, thanks for the invitation.
No, it's great. So obviously your district is Wales, so you're over the bridge, so it wasn't too hard to get to, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So Rob, I mean, you're helping multiple small businesses, doing business with the vehicle that you're in, but when you were at school, was that the sort of role you thought you'd end up doing? Was that what you always wanted to do, is work with people and help them imagine special things, or were you trying to pursue something else?
Well, I think I was probably one of those in school who really didn't know what they wanted to do.
Okay.
So I kind of drifted, I guess, for a long time, and headed towards business. My A-levels were in economics, English and French. My agreement with my parents was I applied for business studies at university, business economics. My agreement with my parents was I'd go for a week. If I liked it, I would stay. If I didn't I didn't want to go. If I didn't like it, then I wouldn't. I wasn't going to be forced to stay. So I did business. Then moved into a couple of different businesses, and my career kind of started. But coming back to your question, at the start in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Wow. And but you know what? That's an interesting one, because it's not an uncommon thing, right? So people are at school, and the pressure comes from the careers officer. What do you want to be? And I honestly think that question is asked way too late in someone's journey, and it's a bit of a surprise because they're so conditioned to school. They think school's going to go on forever. And then you often get people that just can't adjust to life after school. And so for me, when you turn around and say, well, I was at school and I didn't know what to do, I go, well, what's the symptom of that? These are the symptoms, but what's the root cause? And for me, the root cause is we just don't make the most of people's skills, talents, and abilities. We don't identify them early enough, and then map those to potential vehicles for success.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point you make, and connected with what we do now as FSB, the Federation of Small Businesses Supporting Businesses and Entrepreneurship. We've campaigned for a long time that there absolutely needs to be an earlier point at which people can recognise self-employed options.
Yeah.
At school, the systems talk about employment, but in a lot of cases, people don't get to know about the self-employed options until much too late as well. So it's a really good point you make.
Yeah, and what I find is that within the areas of education is that, the route is we're going to go and do a 9-to-5 job and work for somebody, and then the roadmap is get them into employment or get them into university or college, and then our job is done. And I feel that there needs to be more done. School has such a big influence over your life. I'm not saying you're putting an unfair weight of expectation on the teachers, but I think the system itself needs to adapt to modern needs. And so the reason why I bring it up is because within someone like FSB, Federation of Small Businesses, most of the businesses that are there at some point will have a work experience person come along. And I asked the question earlier when I had about 50. So I'm over the years, probably 50 different work experience kids. And I realized I probably may employ maybe 3 of them, maybe. And I realized something's broken here. They can't talk to adults. They don't know what they want to do in life. They're doing this because it's the tick box. There's no heart or passion for living, let alone, working. And so I look at it and I go, when people do make that jump to start a business, someone like the Federation of Small Businesses is there to help people. But again, I don't think people are aware of it enough. FSB should be speaking a lot more in schools, universities, colleges.
Well, we've just come out with a report on youth entrepreneurship, actually, and what's really interesting is, fundamentally, the report is encouraging entrepreneurship in young people.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is the situational elements. So in Wales, for example, people set up businesses, younger people who set up businesses, the main driver is very often economic. Yeah. When in other parts of the country, which are perhaps a little bit more affluent, it's all about chasing a dream. It's all about doing what somebody wants to do. Yeah. Where the passion is. So very situational, but broadly speaking, yes. We do a good amount of work on encouraging entrepreneurship at a young age. Yeah,
so we're working. We've got one of our clients called Purple Shoots, and they do microfinance.
Yeah.
So what Karen Davis. Yeah. And she's trying to help people from those deprived areas, let's say in Wales, for example, raise microfinance to get out of their situation. And what we found is that their stories are often, they've tried to make a way for themselves, not necessarily the right way for themselves to make money, ended up in a bad place. Maybe they got caught, maybe it went wrong or whatever. And then it's like the system gives up on them. And again, they're about resetting the system to get them on board and say, no, you can make an economic difference, but you need a partner, you need someone to help you. So, I'm very aware of that economic problem in Wales, particularly because of the work that they do,
Yeah, I think you touched on a really interesting point there. You've got somebody, we talked about passion. Somebody wants to set up in business because they have a passion for photography, let's say.
Yeah.
So they're really good photographers, but they don't know about the business aspects of being a photographer.
Yeah.
How to manage finances, how to plan financially. So an organisation like Karen's, Purple Shoots, does some great work. We offer the support that we offer to hopefully fill in those gaps for businesses and support them so that they can add to the passion that they have with some practical business guidance and support.
So when you talked about FSB, so, like as an organisation helping those small businesses, you as an organisation are effectively helping people, often building something that hasn't been done before, and also upskilling in areas that they haven't got equipping for. What's the common thing for someone starting a business? You mentioned it economic, or someone that's about living the dream. What do you find? Like, you've obviously worked with a lot of businesses now. What do you find is the common thread for someone starting from scratch?
Well, it really, really varies. But I think in many cases people start because they've been working for somebody else. They enjoy the job that they do.
Yeah.
But they want some more flexibility. They want to be able to make their own decisions. So people quite often have a passion for a particular activity, but they want to be their own boss in effect.
Yeah.
Now, I was talking to somebody earlier on, actually, who was saying that being in business now is not like it was years ago. Clearly, there are lots and lots of challenges. Yeah. But I would say that wanting more control over one's life, I mean, we've talked about passion. We've talked, for me, fundamentally, since COVID, things have changed where people have reassessed, what they need from life to be happy.
100%. Big one.
So I think a lot of people have reassessed, but people, I think, want more control, want more autonomy to live lives on their own terms, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll say a little bit more about what FSB does just as in a moment, if that's okay. But,
absolutely. So going back to your own particular journey, so you leave in school not knowing what to do. So what was your first job?
My first job was actually selling furniture.
Okay.
While I was a student, selling furniture at the department store in town to make some extra money. The furniture shop, I was quite successful. The furniture shop actually went bust. They still owe me £73, which I remember from 1989, by the way.
It's worth a lot then. Yeah.
It was. I don't think I've got any hope of getting that back now.
No.
So, first job was a part-time job as a student. And then after university, unfortunately, my mother died just after university.
Okay.
I had always had the idea that I might move into our small family carpet business. So just after university, I did that and also managed a couple of laundrettes at the same time. So for the next 10 years, self-employed, managing and owning a few laundrettes and a small carpet business.
So it's interesting because, then entrepreneurship's in your DNA, really, isn't it? Like
absolutely.
From it's in your blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously working in the furniture shop, you're learning sales. You're on the front line of sales. And then, essentially working in the family business, and it has its own challenges, but also there's a lot more responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of family businesses who are members of the Federation of Small Businesses, and those close relationships can be really positive, but can also be challenging.
Yeah,
where people are living in each other's pockets sometimes.
Yeah.
But in terms of the responsibility, I think I was probably quite typical of many of our members now, that when you're owning and running a business, it's not just you're looking out for. You have members of staff.
Yeah.
And if the business doesn't do well, those members of staff are going to suffer, their families are going to suffer. Yeah. So I think I was probably quite typical of many of our members now who really feel that responsibility to look after the members of staff that they have.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think, I think when you've got a leader, they don't always have the people around them to check in with the leader themselves, because the leader's wearing all the responsibility, and contrary to popular belief, they're not all living a millionaire lifestyle either. in some instances they're not even taking money themselves, or they're sacrificing their family's needs for the benefit of the greater good, and no one knows about it. And so that's why being part of things like the Federation of Small Businesses and people like that, they can be themselves, they can have difficult conversations and feel like they've got a partner in this journey, because as a business owner, it's you, or maybe you and one other, but you still feel alone at times.
Well, to pick up on two things, if I may, one of our members who I was speaking to earlier was actually saying that what a lot of people don't realise is that as the business owner, they're the last one to get paid.
Yeah.
It's the staff who get paid first.
And
if the business doesn't make money, or if things are not going well, it's the business owner who suffers, really suffers. Just in terms of what FSB does, it's probably worth me just explaining sort of a 30-second overview.
Absolutely fine.
So we're the UK's major business support organisation. We're a not-for-profit. We're a membership organisation with the stated aim of helping small businesses achieve their ambitions, and there are three main ways that we do that. So coming back to that sort of support that you're talking about, that you asked about, that we offer, we organise events to help businesses along. We have a range of member benefits. So for example, if somebody has a legal query, they can give us a ring and speak to somebody free of charge. If somebody's owed money, we can help them get that money back. Somebody can get discounts on insurance and so on. So there's a wide range of practical support that we offer, which fundamentally supports businesses. And then the third thing that we do is we lobby on behalf of small businesses. So we try and make sure that small businesses have a strong and unified voice with governments across the UK.
Because ultimately, I think, what's the stats? Is it 90% of businesses in the UK are SMEs?
More, depending on which stats you look at, around about 95, 98% even are small businesses. And just in terms of looking after the wider economy, it's really difficult to have a healthy economy without a healthy small business sector. As you've just pointed out, you've got 98%, whatever the stat we'll go with, are small of businesses in the UK are small and medium-sized. They employ around 60% of all those employed in the private sector. So they create and maintain around about 16 million jobs across the UK.
Wow.
So it's unless you look after the small business community, it's really difficult to look after the wider economy. And if you don't look after the wider economy, obviously things like healthcare, education, addressing environmental issues can't be resolved unless you've got that taxation coming in from a healthy small business community. And the wealth created, I use the term taxation, but perhaps I should say more the wealth created by small businesses.
I mean, that's it. It's new money at the end of the day. I mean, they might be based in the UK, but they might be bringing in money from other markets as well.
Absolutely.
Into the UK economy.
Absolutely.
So, when you've worked at the carpet business, you've been part of laundry, and everyone needs to wash, right? And everyone needs a carpet to some degree. So where did you transition from that journey into something like what you're doing now? You could argue you're the other side of the fence.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. You talked about a pivot point.
Yeah.
So for me, it was quite clear. I enjoyed what I did in the carpet business. Worked with some lovely people. We had a really good reputation. I enjoyed the work that we did. However, I felt that I really wanted to give something. I'd been really lucky. And this is going to sound really cliched and potentially a bit OTT. But I was 15 or 16 when the whole Ethiopian famine was going on. Right. And that really affected me. I found myself thinking, look how lucky we are. In certainly me personally, I'm not suggesting that everybody in the UK was as lucky as I might have been. And that really affected me. That made me think about wanting to make a difference sort of globally.
It's a shift about impact.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that Ethiopian famine situation in the 80s is as I got towards 30, as much as I was enjoying my life, I was thinking I want to do something to give a little bit. I'd felt really lucky myself, and I wanted to do something to help other people. So I actually went overseas to Kenya to do voluntary work for 2.5 years as a business advisor to work with small businesses in Kenya to try and help them along. So that was absolutely a pivot for me, where I kind of, I suppose, had a complete shift in activity.
Yeah. So working out there as a volunteer, so to speak, I mean, you're exposed to, if you don't make money, then you die in a sense, and there's no welfare systems to support people. So you're really seeing business at a cold-faced front edge, isn't there? There's no black safety blanket there. It either works or it doesn't. So what were the key lessons that you picked up from helping people there? What was because there was obviously, you want to impact and you're learning, but there's obviously intelligence that you're learning over time. What common themes did you find out in Kenya that almost the same in a Western society?
Oh, that's a really difficult, so many different ways that I could answer that question. I think from a learning point of view, people are people, I guess.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things for me is that I came back feeling that actually in the UK we'd kind of forgotten how to be happy. You know, most of us in the UK have got roofs over our heads.
Yeah.
We have running water.
Yeah.
We have access to healthcare. And yet, you know, certainly many people I know will grumble about the size of their television screen or the car that they've got, or they want a bigger house, or this, that, and I think a big learning for me was actually remembering just to appreciate what we've got. From a business point of view, from a professional point of view, it was really challenging, I have to say. You know, you're encouraging businesses to actually sell things, but actually customers don't have any money. Yeah. In that context, so you know, it's really difficult to actually affect change.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it's like the statistic. I think, again, talking statistics, it was like if you've got a TV and the roof over your head, you're in the top 1% in the world. And I think that's mind blowing because you grow up in it and you assume that this is what everyone's got. This is what everybody's entitled to. And I think the big shift you told me is that for me to start a business, I think when you first start out, you think, oh, I want to be successful. And that is the measurement of success, that you've got a house, you've got a car, you've got TV, you've got this sort of stuff. But I think as you've been doing it for a time, you think, oh, hang on a minute, is that what life is about? And I think most people go for a pivot point at some point in their life. You know, like for you ended up in Kenya, and now you're leaving life for impact, right? Mine was 2001, where I'm about to run a marketing agency, and when I'm about to sign papers, I realised that a lot of our clients, although we've got some brilliant ones, we've also got some pretty ropey ones that sell cigarettes and promote drinking as much as possible. And I realised that I didn't want to do it. So that was my pivot point, because I thought, well, maybe what I'm doing is just wrong inherently. And I went out on mission trips. So I drove minibuses across, like from Bristol all the way to a place called Iași, which is in Romania.
Okay, wow.
And done that a couple of times, handing out aid, and I loved it. It was brilliant. It's different headspace or whatever. But it was when I was handing aid out on the top of a minibus, I thought, well, this is great, but it's not me. I'm making an impact, but it's not me. And where it dawned on me was that maybe my skills, talents, and abilities weren't wrong. It was actually how I was applying them. And then I came back and then began the embryo, if you like, of what creation, the brand marketing agency was, building brands on purpose and helping other people live out purpose. And that's why I talk about purpose, because I think a lot of businesses at the core, making money is only a part of it. They need money to live, but if you gave them the choice, they would want an impact as well. And particularly a lot of entrepreneurs, when you said like a business owner is liable to pot themselves last for someone to get paid, they are wanting to do good. It's very few and far between where they want to screw people over, make as much money as possible, and whatever. They want to make an impact, and that's why I think like the FSB elevate people that want to make an impact.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, and you spark off a number of points for me there.
Go.
But just in terms of wanting to make a difference and wanting to make an impact, I'd go along with that entirely. I'd struggle to think of a case where I meet a business who doesn't want to do something positive in some way.
Yeah.
And that's going to be different for we're all different as individuals. We have different experiences. We have different, what can I say, likes and preferences in life. In terms of, for me, the international element is quite important. For somebody else, something more local might be more of a focus. So we're all different, but I think that fundamentally, yes, businesses, as most of us, I suspect, in society, want to do something positive if we can.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the difference with that is that I would say when that's the motive, the business the business has got more chance of longevity.
Agree.
Because if it's just about the bottom line,
then
you'll give up. Because they're going to be good years and bad years, right? That's just the nature of life. And if you look at the stock market, which is the biggest companies in the world, it goes up and it goes down, and the overall wealth of the stock market changes with time. So if you look at that context, you go, well, inherently, if it's just about money, then you'll just keep quitting. Whereas the businesses that have survived are saying, no, this is our mission, this is our vision, this is why we exist, we're going to keep going regardless. And for me, I think now more than at any time in history, because of COVID, I think that's the driver. I think people are wanting to make an impact.
I would agree. As you know, we've got this in South Wales, we've got this Being Responsible Businesses initiative, which we've done a pilot on at FSB with a group of our small local businesses. And one of the themes that's coming back to us at the moment is how motivating it is when businesses actually appreciate, we do this positively, we make a big impact there, we look after our staff, we contribute to the community, we're doing our bit towards sustainability. Really motivating for the business owners, but also for staff as well. So in terms of making that difference, and you talked about longevity, absolutely makes a difference.
And I think, and the next point to that is, if businesses do not go down that route, or they reinvent themselves to find out the reason why they started in the first place. So a legacy business, let's say there was a vision behind why they do it. They grew for 25 years. Then there was a management buyout, so they sold it to the next generation. And the next generation are not connected to why that business was started off in the first place. Then it's going to stall, because why? If you don't have that clear mission, vision, values, what the value proposition is, you're going to struggle to recruit people nowadays. So you're not going to get the staff.
And I just as we were talking, you coming back to the point that you mentioned about longevity. And we talked about purpose and impact and so on, particularly right now. Where businesses are having there are some businesses who are doing okay, but a good number, unfortunately, are still really struggling with things like rising costs, higher employment costs, rising input prices, more difficult to trade internationally, and so on. So if that business, a business management team, a business owner, staff, if they haven't got that motivation, becomes much more difficult to actually survive when you've got all of these challenges that you're facing from a mental health point of view. It helps if you've got that knowledge that you're making a difference, that you're helping people.
It's the thing that keeps you going, because like one of the things I talk about a lot, because it is a bad habit that I'm getting a lot better at, is your wins. So not celebrating your wins, not having a wins register, not focusing on the wins that you're actually having. And I think you go, well, that's not going to add any more to the business. Well, it is, because it's going to remind you of why you started in the first place. So not to celebrate your wins ultimately will get you to the place of just doing the grind, doing the hustle. And eventually that becomes tiring, and eventually there's no reward in it, and eventually you get burnt out.
I would agree.
So for me, it's that impact and that influence that keeps me awake, it keeps me going. And I think if a lot of businesses brought that to the fore, we'll get through this tough time together.
I would agree. And it is really difficult. I'm speaking to businesses on a daily basis,
of course you are,
who are really struggling and who are finding it really difficult to stay up and stay focused. So that anything which can give them a bit of a boost to survive these difficult times has got to be positive.
And funny, one of the things you said to me, which really, really did stick out there, is that you said about international markets. So one of the things that I felt when there was a lot of doom and gloom about the cost of living crisis, it then forced me to go, well, what's it like across the pond? What can we do business that way? And I think COVID obviously got you to think a little bit different anyway. But I started to think, well, if the UK are tentative in buying, or there's a lot of negativity, whatever, how can we bring in outside money into an economy that's struggling? And so that got me to travel more, and now we're doing work in the US, we're doing work in Hungary. And, it's almost like I've got 3 countries in my head. I've got one in the EU, obviously one out of the EU, and then one that don't care, which is America, But they got their own journey. But the point of it is, when I think internationally, I'm a lot more hopeful, because I'm not at mercy to one market. And I think what you'll find with a lot of smaller businesses, they never even considered there was a market elsewhere. Now we know because of the tariffs and all that sort of stuff, just make things a little bit more complex. How that plays out, we don't know. But I certainly think, when you're in tough times, is to really think about it and pivot and go, well, can we do something different, or is there a new product line?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think a lot of businesses don't actually think we can export, whether that's to do with confidence, whether that's to do with a lack of awareness, whether that's they feel like they haven't got the skills. But we know the businesses that look to export typically grow, survive and grow much more than businesses who don't.
It's just by numbers, right? The size of client.
I think the word you just used is product offer.
Yeah.
I think fundamentally, in order to export effectively, I think a business needs to really look at its basic building blocks. What am I offering?
Yeah.
How attractive is this for customers?
Yeah.
So looking at that fundamental offer, and how effective, how good that is, I think stands you in good stead then to look to export.
But you won't realise how much impact or offer you have unless you're recording your wins. Because you lose sight of it, right? So the more you write it down and go, this is what we did for this person, this is what I did, the more you get confidence, because now you're going, this stuff works. Whatever I'm doing is making a difference. So therefore, builds my confidence. So therefore, I'm more certain about what I'm selling. Yeah. Because if you're not, you can pick it up, right?
Yeah, and I don't think I picked up fully on the point that you mentioned about wins there, if I'm honest. But now you've come back to it. Agree entirely, and I guess that's got to be really positive for staff motivation as well, hasn't it?
100%.
When staff see these wins, and staff see actually, okay, look at that difference we've made.
Yeah, well, so I think I was we work with a couple of recruitment agencies, and I think it's number 3 or number 4 on the recruitment list is salary. It's not the primary reason why people change job. For one of them, I don't know which is. I think it's number 1 is, do they get on with their boss? And the issue is, if you don't know what the vision or the plan and the motivation is behind what you're trying to build, the chances are you won't get on with your boss, because you might be operating in diametrically opposing views. The second one is work with meaning. People are interested in work with meaning. Yeah. And then I think the third one is, am I progressing? All those top 3 are completely and utterly related to purpose. Yeah. The purpose of the business that you're working in, the purpose of actually, are you impacting and doing work for good? And yet this big one, which we always talk about, moving for money, isn't the biggest motivator. And what often happens is the business keeps chucking money to try and solve the problem, which is then bringing the whole place even more stressed. Yeah. Because it's not solving the solution. Well, I better give them all more money because they might stay. Well, now, hang on a second. Let's go back to, is this company making an impact? And is it making an impact? Okay, great. Now, if we can communicate the impact that we're making better than anybody else, then chances are you're going to be visible and more people want to do business with you. Yeah. That's just fundamental marketing. Yeah. You're not making it up.
I agree with you entirely, and I think you lead me to, we've talked about having a good product offer. Yeah. We've talked about communication with staff. Do you get on with your manager? Yeah. We've talked about marketing. These are what we might term fundamental leadership skills. Yeah. So just coming back to the point that we were talking earlier about it, enterprise education and entrepreneurship. Yeah. The point about education, I think, applies to people who've been in business for 20, 30 years as well. Yeah. Let's get a fresh pair of eyes. Let's think about this from a new angle in terms of our product offer, our marketing, how we engage with staff, how we motivate staff. What really floats the boat of our staff? Is it money, or is it, as you just said, those other things? Yeah. So I think that point about in the UK now, I think there are some really good initiatives, certainly in Wales, to support that development of leadership and management. But I think businesses often need to look at themselves and say, okay, well, how can I help myself? Yeah. What can I do to improve my management skills?
100%. And I think, for me, it's being a student of leadership for the rest of your life helps you massively. We know, Rob, that I'm into sport. Every time we meet, we talk about my football team's results. But the point of it is that because I'm in sport, it's often, there are a lot of principles about rallying a team, and you get the result at the end of 90 minutes, let's say. And that's ultimately what you're doing when you're building teams working in the business, is that you've got to communicate the the wins that you're having. And I think when I very first started out, it was almost like the only win is if the team grows, like getting more members of staff, right? So it's always about money and then growing a team. Yeah. But those are not the only metrics to measure or grow a business. And actually, if you keep hiring loads of staff, that becomes unsustainable in itself. So it goes back to the leadership of saying, are we making an impact?
Yeah. And I think what I'd also throw into the mix here is, we talked about 95, 98% of businesses being small and medium sized. Yeah. The vast majority of that 95, 98% are actually micro and 2-3 person businesses.
Yeah.
So in those instances there, I think it's even more important to actually recognize those wins.
Yeah.
From a motivation. Somebody's working on their own, and many people do, as I say, one person businesses. It's even more important for them to recognize the wins to keep themselves going.
It's for me that, it's like, I always felt that because I had the big end game, the big goal, I almost like, well, until I get there, there's no point celebrating. And that sounds really bad, but that's almost intrinsically built into you, that you're only successful until you reach this point.
Yeah.
And I think now my definition of success has changed massively, because it's like, am I making an impact on the day to day? Like, I'll give you an example. We took a member of staff on, and I remember the conversation was, my husband's looking for a job. He'd love to get into this. I know we haven't got any clients this, but can we help him out? And I went away and I thought, oof, okay. How do I make this work? Now, we desperately needed admin help because we were growing. So I took him on as an admin assistant, but at the same time gave that person the capacity to learn 3D, 3D modeling and product and that sort of stuff. And particularly on our R&D days, that's what he did or whatever. Now he works full time doing research and development type work from those days, doing 3D work in the construction industry. That gives me as much joy than, did we make $1 million this year?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense.
Because it's like, that's the impact and influence you can have. So that's a win for me, because I helped someone knit their purpose and my purpose, knit it together. And now they're living life on purpose because they feel that they're making an impact and doing the job that they love.
You sparked something off for me there, which might sound a little bit hippie and out there.
No, it's fine.
There's an element for me of trusting that you're on the right path. I think sometimes you feel you're on the right path.
Yeah.
So it might be 10 years before somebody else comes up to you and actually says, Daryl, you know what? You gave me an opportunity there, and I haven't seen you since, but you giving me that opportunity actually enabled me to do this, which enabled me to do that.
Yeah.
And actually now I've really helped other people and so on. So sometimes you don't know the difference you're making, and there's an element of trust if you feel like you're on the right path.
Yeah, I think the very DNA of where like creation started, the business. So we started in the charitable organisation as a department. So we were, one of the ways to fundraise was beginning to do outside work for a department that's doing a lot of stuff for the charity. And the only way we could get staff really, or was to train our own. And give them opportunity. So I think that's something I never want to lose, that there are people there that are really skilled. Like our creative director was in his bedroom, not now, but he was in his bedroom as a young guy. Now he's married, he's got kids, but he couldn't get, he studied graphic design, but he just couldn't get a job. No one would give him a chance. And someone come up to me and said, got this guy, he'd be really good for you. Can you just give him a chance? Like, would he come in and volunteer? And he volunteered. And he volunteered in the organisation for about a year.
Wow.
A couple of days here and there, and did more and more and more. To the point it was like, we have to take this guy on. And he's still with me now.
Brilliant.
And that for me that's part of the journey that you said, a lot of these businesses are employing people. And so you're giving people the opportunity to work and do great work, as well as trying to live your millionaire lifestyle.
I think that, got you with you entirely.
Yeah.
Just to shift focus, if I can, for a second.
You absolutely
in terms of, I've talked about what we do as FSB.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to just touch on the external aspects.
Yeah. Okay.
Of business life in the UK. So we lobby on behalf of small businesses.
Yeah.
We know the small businesses have got those issues that I mentioned earlier, the rising costs, business rates for a lot of people. So there's an element, there's a role here as well for government to actually create a system, an environment that actually works for small businesses. So making it as conducive as possible for small businesses to start up, for business people who've got an idea to actually get the support that they need.
Yeah.
Business rates I've just touched on. Late payments needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
So, reducing a tax burden for businesses. We talked about the benefits that small businesses growing and employing people brings. So there are things that, the wider governments need to be looking at to support and enable some of the things we're talking about.
Well, one of the best things or best tools for decision making is understanding what's really going on. You're talking about lobbying government and working with government. And one of the things I'd say is there is a disconnect often within government with what's really going on the ground. And part of making any decision making is based on the aspects of understanding the audience that you're actually serving. So if you're a federation of small businesses and you're surrounded by small business, and then you bring this to the government and those people have been continually ignored, then the distance between government and success just widen. And so what you then create is this thing of called them and us, which I feel is what we're at the moment, is that I don't believe small businesses are being heard enough. The government are saying, we're doing it this way and everyone else needs to conform. But there doesn't seem to be much of a conversation between the two. Like the NI and all that sort of stuff, where businesses are saying, well, we're already under pressure. We've had COVID. We now come out of COVID and now we're paying all those loans back. And then we're trying to deal with customer confidence. We've had a cost of living crisis. And now you're increasing everyone's wages up, which makes sense naturally, but there's been no conversation in, well, who's paying for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the poor business owner is now under even more pressure to keep going. And unfortunately, you're seeing layoffs on an unprecedented scale because people just can't afford to keep people employed.
Would agree. And fundamentally, you just illustrated, the reason there needs to be a strong FSB. We need to be continuing to lobby on these points. And that disconnect that you talked about. Yeah, I talked earlier about how without a strong small business community employing people, you can't have a strong economy. Yeah. Without a strong economy, you can't resolve healthcare and so on. Yeah. Fundamentally, decision makers need to be, really, that needs to be really emphasized to them, and they really need to be understanding that. So agree with you entirely.
Yeah.
But just to pick up on one or two of the points there, we've just, every quarter we survey our members and the small business community.
Yeah.
And the most recent results have just come out, and 85% of businesses surveyed are still reporting rising costs. Something like 23% have cut back on staff.
Yep.
Haven't taken on new staff, while 8% have.
Yep.
So again, that's a downward trend, unfortunately. But things are still extremely difficult for small businesses, as you rightly pointed out.
Yeah,
and it's having a material impact.
It is having a material impact because here's the thing: you can speak. I'm not trying to get political here, but it's almost like if you're not listening to the body of entrepreneurs and people, because again, as soon as you say entrepreneurs, everyone assumes that an entrepreneur is a multi-million-dollar, £1,000,000 person, and we're all driving amazing cars and in the world's biggest houses, and it's like, well, hang on a second. It's like you pointed earlier, these people are often paying themselves last because they're trying to keep a company running in tough times.
Yeah.
And that's often happened more frequently than not. And so at what point are we having this conversation that, how do we help enterprise succeed? And putting more burdens and more pressure on is coming from one way. It doesn't come across as a dialogue. It comes off, well, if you can't hack it, then close your business down. But then if 98% of the businesses in the country are SMEs, and they all shut up shop, where are those people going to work?
Spot on, Daryl. Spot on. Fundamentally, over the next 6-8 months, there's going to be an autumn budget. There's going to be a spending review at some point.
Yeah.
There are things that need to change. Fundamentally, there should be no more tax burden on small businesses, as you've just said. They can't absorb anymore.
No.
If their costs are continuing to go up, but actually customers have got less to spend,
Yep.
and more can't be charged by those businesses, then there's a mismatch.
Yep.
So things like that, the tax burden absolutely can't go up anymore. There needs to be change to business rates. across the UK, which is a huge issue for businesses. The Employment Rights Bill. We know that many, the vast majority of small businesses really want to look after their staff. 100%. But there are things in the Employment Rights Bill which need to be looked at.
Yeah.
There are things which are making people making businesses very nervous about taking on new staff.
Yeah.
So there are some practical things that need to be looked at. Personal guarantees on loans.
Yeah.
On funding, which is that's at the moment personal guarantees are being asked for, which make accessing funding prohibitive for small businesses. Late payments, I think I mentioned. So there's a whole range of things that government needs to do to support. Small
because
businesses.
Obviously, if you let's say look at a loan, for example, the loan's often taken based on historical performance, and it's also taken on good faith that the market continues to succeed. So these businesses take out that loans, and then you make a whole load of decisions. They're making 7 times more difficult. Now they're going to struggle, but then it's like, as the business owner, they obviously didn't do a great job. And by the way, you're going to default on your loan, and now we want your house, your car, and everything else you work for. And I'm like, that beggars belief, because I'm like going, clearly there's no dialogue, and that's why people like the FSB say, no, this is actually what's really happening, and these people need to be heard. Yeah. They need to work together, because the average worker, again, as you said, the people that are employing, the entrepreneurs that are employing, they're not trying to turn their staff into slaves either. They want them to succeed as well, but you're making it harder. And the last thing they want to do is let people go.
Yeah. It's again, agree entirely. And just to illustrate the importance of small businesses again themselves supporting our lobbying. Last week we had a round table with a few political figures. Yeah. In terms of confidentiality, I won't go into any details. I won't talk about the business names and so on. No, it's fine. But it was really important that we can talk about things, but when we as FSB can talk about the issues, but when businesses themselves sit there in front of a decision maker and say, this is the reality for me right now. This is really difficult. It can be really sobering. So we always really appreciate when our members and small businesses can actually support our lobbying, put some colour on the hard facts that we put out, and you can see those decision makers then thinking. We talked about the disconnect. You can see them thinking, we understand. If small businesses are not supported, that's 10 jobs which are going to go from that person there. 7 jobs which are going to be cut if that business doesn't succeed. Just looking around the table now. 30 jobs which are going to go there potentially. And it is that, things are really difficult for many businesses.
And it sounds bad, but it's not meant to be. It's like almost the CEO, the business owner, the leader that's grown a business. Let's say it's got 200 staff, they're semi-successful in the idea. And they then come out and say, look, this is unsustainable. Well, it's all right for you. You got this big company and you're the CEO. And it's like, that's coming from someone that doesn't understand the historical journey that person's been on to get the company to that level. And it's almost like, the best way I can describe it, it's almost like we're punishing those people that succeed and not listening to them. And say, you've grown a business to say 200 people. How did you do that? How can I take your education and pass it on to someone else, so they may be stuck at 20. How can we work together? But it's almost like they go, well, you know what? I spent 25 years growing this. Everything I grow, I lose 50% of. I'm going to leave the country, and then we lose them. And all I'm trying to get to is that we've heard the statement that a lot of millionaires more than ever is leaving the country, and they are being demonized as the bad guys because now they're not contributing to society. And I'm like going, well, they have been for 20, 25 years. Where do you think the NI is coming from, and the VAT and the corporation tax and all the other things has come from that business?
And just in terms of the NI, let's look at a specific example of the increased taxation burden on small businesses. So I was with a business last week, employs 95 people.
Right.
The impact of the national insurance contribution rises and the minimum wage rises, and the knock-on effects is likely to be about 160,000 per year.
Wow. Yeah.
So that means that some jobs which are going to be created are now no longer being created.
Yeah.
Some investment which was going to happen is now not going to happen. So there's a knock-on effect for the supplier there in the supply chain, the business that was going to actually undertake the work involved with the investment. All sorts of knock-on impacts,
But cost of living still going up. So I can give you more money. So I give you you've gone up by £1,000, but I'm taking $5,000 from you in every other way. I'm taking it off fuel. I'm taking it off food. I'm taking it off this, taking it off that. So you're not better off. And that's where I look at it and go, I'm not an economist, right? So please don't, But just from a common sense, looking at it, very basic, going, well, you can put more money in people's pockets, but is that solving the problem?
Yeah.
Because the money they got in their pockets isn't going as far. I could give them another huge pay rise.
And we've talked about things from the business's point of view. I mean, fundamentally, from a customer's point of view, they got less money to spend, as you say. So if a business has got costs rising, but actually customer spending can only stay level, then sooner or later the ceiling gets broken, and the finances don't.
If I'm producing, so I'm a farmer and I'm producing food, then the food and the costs are going up and up and up. So naturally, the food is going to cost more. And naturally, let's say Tesco's, for example, they're buying that food in and they're saying, well, our electricity bills are going up or whatever, so we're going to squeeze you on margin even more. So it's just not helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think not to disagree in any way with what we're saying now, but just from the point of view of a consumer, and I speak of myself now, I'm talking me personally. So I live in an area of Cardiff where there are many supermarkets open until midnight or all night. Nearby there is also a fruit and veg shop. The prices in the fruit and veg shop, marginally higher if at all, very often cheaper than the supermarket. The quality of product is better, actually. It does require me as an individual to make a 5-minute walk to actually get to the fruit and veg shop instead of actually picking everything up in the supermarket, which I'm ashamed to say sometimes I do.
Of course.
So from a consumer's point of view, there are things that we can do as well sometimes to support small businesses.
100%.
And I think there's an element of us as a society thinking, well, how can I support a small business?
And I agree with that. And I think, it's that classic one. I was talking to a restaurant owner. He's actually exited now, but, he would say, look, in some cultures, they start a restaurant and everyone in the community goes and eats out. But when they go and eat out, they go and eat out that restaurant to support them and keep them growing. And they benefit for a great night out, and he benefits because he's getting the business. And he said that's how it should be. But he said what he finds is we don't, in the UK anyway, we don't seem to champion success as much as other countries do. And my very limited experience of the US, it's like they celebrate success a lot more than we do in this country. We almost sort of think, well, why are you successful? Very suspicious of success. Whereas in the US, it's like, well done. Keep it going. Brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. I think that many cultural aspects. I remember years, and I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago, speaking to somebody who was, talking about somebody else who'd set up a business. Well, who do they think they are that they can set up a business? Just that kind of negativity.
But let's bring that right the way back.
Hopefully things have changed there, by the way. But anyway,
but I think the reason why that suspicion comes through, because I think there has been, and maybe it's been amplified, but there was this push to make as much money as possible and let's screw over the little guy. And we watch movies on it and the media and the 80s, for example. Back in the 80s, it was all about making money. Everyone wanted to be Gordon Greco, I think his name was. He was all Wall Street and make money. And I think actually business owners now have more of a heart and more of a thing to do good, but I think everyone else has got to catch up to see that shift, that a lot of business owners now are of like impact and influence rather than just income, because they realize it's got to be more than that. And I think that needs to be communicated more, so therefore we feel less suspicious of the person that wants to be an entrepreneur.
I'd agree with you in terms of people needing to catch up. Agree entirely. And a phrase that I often use is how do we turbocharge people's good intentions? To use the fruit and veg shop that I talked about, and to say, okay, so I am going to make that walk instead of buying everything. How do we turbocharge and convert good intentions to changes in behaviour? Whether it's to do with the local high street, whether it's to do with the fruit and veg shop I've just talked about, whether it's to do with buying some microphones online or with your local supplier. But converting those good intentions to behaviour.
Because what I've seen in terms of the shift to cities. So cities have become more green, so to speak. And I look at Bristol, and it saddens me to see Bristol, for example, as a city where they've put charges on to protect the environment. Like the green tax, if you like, when you're driving in. You've got cameras everywhere. Parking is through the roof. And so basically, and then you've got the aspect of remote working. So you look at those retail units, it's getting harder and harder for someone to go into a city, and Bristol's one of many, to go into a city where businesses have been there for 10, 15, 20 years doing well. And now people are going, well, it's too much hassle and the parking costs too much. And because when the cost of living crisis stopped going in, so then you end up with this aspect of you lose the footfall. And so what you've got now is a lot of these people are now generally, whether rightly or wrongly, are now starting to shop smarter by going to out of town where they can park all day for free. They then might go to a farm shop because of the nature of where we find ourselves.
Coming back to that point, we talked about a disconnect. We've talked about the town centres, which are struggling at the moment, certainly in Wales and across the UK. I think it's fair to say that many town centres are struggling. You just touched on the out-of-town department stores where there's free parking, plenty of parking, and so on. I think one of the key things that we would be asking governments, local authorities, is for a level playing field. For businesses, for small independent businesses in towns. We've done a lot of campaigning on towns. So things like business rates, things like parking, these need to be looked at to make sure that that businesses in towns are not at a disadvantage. We know that towns are going to need the future of towns is not what it was. It's not going to be just a high street. There's going to be a mix of usage, clearly. But certainly there, local authorities, governments, in terms of funding, should be supporting these towns.
Well, give an example, like London, for example. London, biggest city in the world, but on Monday and Friday is quiet. Because the way we work has changed fundamentally.
Absolutely.
The solution isn't just whacking charges up or increasing parking or increasing the fee to drive into the. That's not going to help get people to come back to the city.
And just in terms of towns and cities, I guess there's a kind of a triangle, I suppose, with three groups at one corner of each triangle who need to work together for towns to succeed. You've got businesses themselves who need to be creating a strong, vibrant, independent offer. And we know our research has consistently suggested that what people want is that independent, varied retail offer. Local authorities need to be supporting in terms of planning, in terms of a pro-business culture, and communities and customers actually need to be supporting small businesses in town. So there's a role for three key groups there.
But it goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, that there needs to be open and honest dialogue, communication, and that someone representative from government, FSB and business owners sat around the table, maybe the town planner, sat around the table. How do we work to ensure that we've got a happier, healthier, sort of thriving economy whereby everyone wins? Because ultimately, people want to be able to go shopping, have their coffee, do this, that sort of stuff, because that is a privileged part of living, if you like, that we've enjoyed for many years, but it's just become harder and harder and harder. And
just coming back to purpose, we've touched on obviously through the whole conversation today. I know that my colleagues, all of my colleagues, I'd struggle to think of one who are at FSB. We appreciate how lucky we are to be trying to make a difference in representing small businesses and getting these messages across. So in terms of purpose, from an individual point of view, it certainly helps me feel like what I'm doing is at least trying to make a difference,
Yeah, so obviously you've gone from being an entrepreneur to working the other side of the fence, helping businesses, but I think because you have that background experience, you know what it's like. You know about the long days, the tough days, the hard days, and you understand the aspects of people walking into your shop and knocking on the door and customer service and doing a really good job. You understand it, and I think what makes it interesting for someone like yourself, Rob, is that you now have instant empathy because you get it.
I'd like to think that on some level that empathy exists. I'd like to think,
I do. But it generally comes across. You generally come across as somebody that understands that it's not easy. And I think that's great. Whereas, you don't come across as someone that is suspicious or whatever. You're like, well, how do we help? How do we come to serve you with FSB to help you be everything that you can be and your business can be? And that for me is positive. And I think, You know, business should not be seen as a negative thing. Owning a business should not be a bad thing. It should be a good thing, and we should be able to encourage more people to do it.
Yeah,
and it shouldn't be no one else will employ me, I might as well do it. That should be the default. It should be, you know what, if I can start a business that has impact and employ people, and they all feel like they're in place and they're living life on purpose, that's a healthy business.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I always argue with that, you know, Liverpool Football Club is an entity that employs people. So Jurgen Klopp or Arne Slot, they're living life on purpose, but they are employed by an organisation. So I'm saying not everyone has to be an entrepreneur, but you have to create the conditions for an entrepreneur to thrive so people can live purpose.
Yeah, agree entirely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Rob, you know, you're obviously doing what you're doing. What's the future hold for you? You're going to be doing this the next 20 years? Or you're going to get out there maybe at some point and set up another business? Who knows?
Who knows? At the moment, I'm a big believer that quite often in life, you don't understand why things are happening.
Yeah.
Until you get to a point where you say, okay, right, if that hadn't happened, that wouldn't have happened. And I wouldn't be where I am, which is where I feel I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
And without wanting to tempt fate in any way, and without wanting to sound OTT, you know, I'm happy where I am at the moment.
Yeah.
So in terms of the next 20 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll be 35 years of age by that time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're wearing well.
So I really don't know. Yeah. Who knows? And that's one of the exciting things, I guess.
Yeah. What about FSB then? Because obviously you're big time part of that. What do you think will happen with FSB in the next sort of like 20 years? Do you think its role's going to grow?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, we know that when things are difficult, people value our members value our services even more. So let's take, for example, over COVID. Unfortunately, there were lots of businesses who needed extra support at that time.
Yeah.
And we were able to provide that sort of guidance, signposting, legal support, and so on. So I think when things are difficult, and sadly they have been difficult, as we've talked about earlier, we know that small businesses really value our services. So I think that we certainly have a role to play from a member benefits point of view, a day-to-day practical support, but also from that lobbying point of view. And I think that's going to change clearly over time. No global situation clearly stays the same, as we know just recently.
Yeah.
Within the UK, things change. Sustainability and the environment obviously is a huge thing.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that we'll have a role to play, and we've done a lot of work in that area already. But I'm sure that that's going to be something which will continue to be a theme of will need to be a theme of our work.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one because, you know, like we talked about cars and parking and stuff, and there's obviously a good motive behind it, right? But it's almost forgot that the buying consumer, you see what I mean, is that the buying consumer is going to go to the least friction possible. So if you're whacking parking charges and you're now banning them from using their car to some extent, there is going to be a negative net effect to the economy in that particular place because people will go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so if I offer free parking, so I remember when I'm using Bristol as an example. So I remember when Cabot Circus started, the excitement of, oh, wow, beautiful new place. Everyone that used to shop at the Mall then starts going to Cabot Circus. Isn't it great? Isn't it amazing? Whatever. Now they're paying for parking, but they don't mind. And then they start creeping the prices of the parking. And now this, and now this, and that. Now it's gone the other way. The Mall's packed because you've got free parking. It's easy to do it. And now you're killing the centre of the city, which was already struggling because of our working behaviours has changed. That sandwich shop that had 5 days worth of trade now only works maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's the shift in cities. So I guess what's intriguing or interesting to me is the future of retail and what's going to happen to our cities, because I think it's changed fundamentally in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and again, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with retail. I've used the term a level playing field earlier between out of town and town centre businesses. I think we touched on that concept of a level playing field. Same principle applies to online sales and in-person physical retail store sales. Online businesses don't have any business rates to pay typically, or it's certainly not to the same extent as high street businesses. So that's something which needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
We know that consumers more and more are looking for an experience.
100%.
They're looking for a unique retail experience. They want to enjoy shopping. So again, potentially there's a change moving from online to more physical premises and back to town centres. And I think there's also a role for let's be realistic. There's also a role for retail businesses to potentially up their game in terms of online.
I agree. I think if there is that the evolving, like the department store was a big thing, like let's say 80 years ago. Online shopping habits will always change and always anticipate, but I think my thing is people like to hang out with people and connect with people and work with people. And I do feel that, when we go solely completely online, then it's just commodities. And I think, we're losing the aspect of customer service, engagement, meeting a need, and those skills are great.
And we're losing the aspect of community as well.
Yeah, 100%.
With that. I mean, we know that small businesses in town centres create employment.
Yeah.
They provide social opportunities for people very often who are vulnerable and haven't got any other social opportunities. So, just having a chat. Yeah. There might be somebody who's lonely, just going to buy some milk locally.
I'd rather go, like when I go to a supermarket, I'd rather go to a person than go beep, beep, and then it doesn't work, and then I have to go and get someone to come over and make it work. And I'm like, this isn't really working. It's not working.
Yeah, we're of the same mind there.
Well, Rob, how would a business reach out to you if they, they love what they hear, they like the conversation today? How would they reach out to you to, maybe even join the FSB? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Two ways, I guess. First of all, I'd be more than happy to take any inquiries which might come in. So contact me directly. If somebody does a quick Google search for Rob Basini, FSB, I'm sure my contact details will come up. Contact FSB directly, www.fsb.org.uk, and make an inquiry that way. Or there'll be a local, if somebody wanted to speak to somebody more locally in their part of the country, then they could just do a quick Google search for FSB North of England, for example, FSB Northwest, whatever the case might be. But very happy to take inquiries.
No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been great sort of being part of the community and looking at doing better business and working with you and the guys out in Wales. I love hopping over the bridge. I'm still very much part of that, over there and working with businesses there. But it's been a privilege to discuss business with you and talk about the struggles and the strains that people are facing, and ultimately, the best thing that's come out of this for me is that lobbying aspect. I don't think it's played up enough, that if we can help lobby Parliament with a body of people to make changes or stop making broadcast decisions without consultative work on FSB and people like that, then and you could say, well, they do that anyway. No, they don't. No, they don't, because you wouldn't get so many complaints because people wouldn't know what was coming. We just find out that on April the 6th, this is what's happening, and tough. So for me, it's been an absolute pleasure spending some time with you talking about business, and I'm sure we'll get you back. So thank you.
It's been a real pleasure for me too. Thanks again for the invitation.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.